Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be giving you a wrap up of the books I read in March. I don't know why I wanted to put them in here so they looked pretty and all collected, but I don't know if as you read it the books expand, but getting them back into the box was harder than I thought it would be. So yeah, I'm going to go through my March wrap up. My March started off bad and I'll get into why, but by the end of March I had a really good reading journey. So yeah, let's just get down to it. Not sure if I'm feeling the bandana, but we're going to roll with it. I almost feel like I look like a peasant, but I'm going to say that I look like a peasant who's about to embark on the fantasy journey of their lifetime. I am about to find out that I have lost powers and I'm actually the queen of a random fake country. So yeah, I am on brand with the fantasy theme today, so let's start off with what books I started March with. So the total number of books I read in March is so far 3, but it could be 4 depending on how quick I read the last book in the Mistborn trilogy, but I'll get onto that. So March actually started off kind of bad for me with reading. At the end of February I finished Lightlark and then started reading Nightbane, and I don't know what it was, but I just could not get into Nightbane on the second time round. So I have actually already read it once, and then this was a reread ready to go on to Sky Shade, and I think it was just maybe the right book at the wrong time. Yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. So I read about 100, maybe 150 pages of Nightbane at the start of March, and I've had to DNF it for now, which actually kind of like breaks my heart a little bit. I have to go with what I want and what I fancy in the moment, and at that moment Nightbane just wasn't doing it for me, so I DNF'd it and went on to a book by Jennifer Armentrout. And as I've said in many of my other videos, I am a massive Jennifer Armentrout fan. That is such a tongue twister to say. So I was really excited to read The Fall of Wrath and Ruin. The blurb on the back didn't give much away, but it teased me a little bit, and I was like, this is going to be so good. So I spent a Sunday, I remember it vividly, I was all excited. It was the first Sunday that I had no plans. I snuggled up in bed and I started reading The Fall of Wrath and Ruin, and it just did nothing for me again. I read over 200 pages of this book, so I think I read 2/3 of it and gave it my all, and I had to DNF it again. So as someone who is maybe slightly OCD in their tendencies, is a perfectionist, I am very proud of myself because I DNF'd not 1 but 2 books in March. So if that's not personal growth, then I don't know what is. After 2 DNF'd books, I was, as you can imagine, as any reader will know, losing my mind. I just wanted a book that I couldn't put down, that I just wanted to get my teeth into. So I think I've said, like in my previous videos, at the end of last year I ate up Saving 6 by Chloe Walsh. They're the second 2 books in the Boys of Tommen series, and then the next book was is called Taming 7, which was actually the first full book that I read for March. I picked Taming 7 because I just thought that it was like a romance that I didn't have to think about. I could probably eat it up because I'm a little bit trashy these days, and yeah, that's exactly what happened. So Taming 7, no spoilers ahead, I'll just give a brief overview, and that goes for all the books that I'm about to talk about, all 4 of them. Taming 7 focuses on Gibbsy and Claire, characters you do see in the first 4 books of the Boys of Tommen series, so they're not new characters for us. Boys of Tommen, kind of each book or each 2 books will focus on like a different couple or a different set of characters, and I didn't not have high hopes for Taming 7, but Redeeming 6 and Saving 6 were up here. I don't think anyone could beat Joey Lynch as a book boyfriend for me, so I had mediocre expectations, and it wasn't a bad book. It definitely does not hold a candle up to Saving 6 and then obviously Binding 13. Those are still my favourite out of the 5 books, but it was just really, I won't say light-hearted because some of the things that are discussed in the book can be probably quite traumatising for like people who might have gone through similar things. So like, as a trigger warning there, it is good, but it's just high school drama and a few darker subjects, but also just like both characters are like sunshiny in it, so I've never really read when it's like sunshine meets sunshine before, so it was just nice anyway to like read something where I didn't have to, I already knew the characters, I already knew the world, and it's set in like Ireland, it's like a reality one, so it's not like I had to build all this fantasy world in my head. So yeah, I ate that up still. Even if it wasn't as amazing as the first like 4 books, it was still good, so I would recommend it, especially if you like Gibbsy as a character. But I think I've said this before in another video, his name is Gerard, but I read his name as Gerald for the entire book bar the last 100 pages. So when I realised that, I was reading it on Kindle, so maybe my eyes just didn't want to adjust to the page properly, but I read that as Gerald for the whole book, and then I was like, well, Jared is such a fitter name. Not that names, you know, but we all know there's some names that aren't what you would imagine a book boyfriend to have. So yeah, anyway, so for Taming 7 I did give it 3 stars because it was okay. Like, it wasn't the best story I've ever read, but also like I did enjoy it enough to finish it. But like, I would recommend it. It's an okay read, but it's like nothing out of the park, nothing that blew my mind away. And also like, it's not the characters' faults, but they had a very high standard to meet with Johnny and Joey and Shannon and Aoife, and unfortunately they just didn't quite do it for me. But I would still 100% recommend it. Like, it's still a good read, and it was just nice to actually be enjoying the book I was reading rather than trying to like force myself to read it. So yeah, book 1 that I finished for March was Taming 7, and then the rest of March has been taken up by the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. All I can say to begin with is Chef's Kiss. So my friend did recommend this series to me a while ago. He told me how good it was, and I was like, yeah, I'll read it, and just have never got round to it. But then after reading Taming 7, I just wanted a fantasy where I could get swept away, and like, yeah, I just really fancied a fantasy book. I just wanted to meet loads of new characters, get lost in a world that's really different to our world now. And I went to London for work and happened to fall into a bookshop on the way to the conference thing we were going to. You know, these things, they just happen, you can't help it. And Mistborn was on the shelf, and I was like, if this isn't my sign to finally buy Mistborn, then I don't know what is. So yeah, I bought Mistborn. So I bought the first one as a single one, but as you can see, I've now got the trilogy. So I then bought the rest of them like just in the box. But so yeah, I read Mistborn, and I gave it a 4 stars, so already we're off to a better start than Taming 7, which got 3. So I'll try and give a little bit of a summary without giving too much away. So Mistborn is a fantasy book. I thought it would be more whimsical fantasy, like not necessarily fairies, but like more like wizardry, magic and things like that. I think I didn't know what I expected going into it, but that being said, it's still cool. So Mistborn, the kind of premise is there's an emperor who's a bit of a tyrant, and then this little group get together and they want to start a rebellion. Within the world, you've kind of got the noblemen, which are the top class, they're like the elite, and then you've got the scars, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, they're the poor people, who are basically servants, and are like really under the thumb of like the noblemen and the Lord Emperor, Lord Ruler, I think his name's Lord Ruler. The main girl is called Vin. She is a scar urchin. So those are the different classes of people. So within the noble class, there's a magic system that's passed down genetically through family lines. So the premise is that like when the Lord Ruler came to power, the people that backed him, he like bestowed upon them these powers, and then as like the centuries go on, so like thousands of years he's been in power, like these powers will pop up throughout the family line. So if you have the power, you're called an Allomancer. I don't know, it sounds different in my head. Within that, you then can have 2 types of Allomancers. The first one, which are called Mistings, which is you can only access 1 power. So of all the powers, if you can only access 1, then you're called a Misting. And then there's the second one, which is Mistborn, and that means you access all the powers. So you can't have anywhere in between. You either can only have 1 and that makes you a Misting, or you can have all of them and that makes you Mistborn. These are the kind of like powerful people you can be if you've got the powers. And then the powers are centered on like burning different metals. So like tin, for example, could give you like enhanced eyesight, or like I think bronze lets you pick up if other people are using magic. So I will say the magic system is confusing, and I'm on book 3 now and still find it a bit hard to get around, but I am of the opinion is I just read past things that confuse me a little bit. So I still think the concept's really cool, it just maybe it's me, but I do find it a bit confusing. So yeah, that's the magic system, it's really cool. But then Mistborns, normally you only get a Mistborn if they're from the noble class, because that's where all the powerful people are. So Vin's the main girl. I'm not going to give anything away, but is she powerful? Is she not? And then yeah, kind of book 1 is all about like how this little rebellion will navigate like overthrowing the Lord Ruler and what happens then. So you can see how it's fantasy, like there's magical powers, classic downtrodden class that wants to break free of their oppressors. Book 1 was also, as with any fantasy world, it was a bit slow for me, so it took me at least 150 to 200 pages to really get into it. So I think it was just under 700 pages, so still 500 pages that were good, but that's why it got a 4 star, because it just took me a little while to get into the pacing of it. And then The Well of Ascension has been my first 5-star rating of the year, so can we just take a moment please to give it the appreciation it deserves. So yeah, The Well of Ascension I absolutely devoured. It was just, I think so far this year I've read good books, but I haven't read a book where I'm like, I literally can't put it down. Like, I know I've said this year is all about me just enjoying my life, but at certain points I was reading The Well of Ascension and I was meant to be going around to my sister's to watch Lord of the Rings, and I did go in the end, but I was like, how am I meant to put this book down? Like, I can't go outside, I need to know how it ends. And I am not the kind of person who necessarily reacts. I think I've got quite a poker face. I'm not like a very expressive person with books or anything really, but yeah, so I would just normally sit and like react all on the inside, but I did find myself in the last 200 pages of The Well of Ascension, I was like talking to myself out loud, I was putting faces, I was like looking out the window thinking like, what is going to happen? So when I say The Well of Ascension is a 5-star read, I literally mean it's a 5-star read. You've got the whole tension and like class division and the events that happen at the end of book 1. It gets addressed obviously in book 2, but you've just got added layers to it. So like there's a new character that gets introduced, he's called Zane. Again, I'm not going to give anything away, but I was like, oh, what's going to happen with Zane? Is there a possible love triangle in this? And I'm into love triangles at the moment, kind of painful, kind of not. Added element of a possible love triangle, like we were learning more things about the characters, we were learning about them in more depth, like the characters in book 1 that you thought were maybe a bit more superficial and didn't have a lot to them, like we even got chapters in their point of view. There was a bit of a betrayal and like a plot twist in The Well of Ascension that I didn't guess, and I'm normally quite good at guessing plot twists, but I just couldn't think who this character that betrays them was going to be. I was like actually really disappointed with the character that it was. I felt like I was just so sad. I was like really liked his character and I felt really let down. Yeah, like I just felt like I had loads of emotions going through it. It was like I was like fighting the battles with them, and then I just need to give a little shout out to Ellen Venture. He is the man for me. I have nothing else to say. He starts book 1 as like a bit of a scholar, which I like that anyway, and then he kind of becomes a man in book 2, and then I'm on book 3 at the moment, so I guess we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, if Ellen Venture was ever a real person, I would literally sell my soul to be with him. Book boyfriend of March 2025. Was he the bingo card I didn't know I needed? But yeah, so the characters, I think at times this series can feel a bit long, so each book is like 700 pages long, so it's quite the commitment, but the characters and the relationships that are built in there like really make up for the fact that at times it might seem a little bit slow in the plot. But yeah, The Well of Ascension, obviously you have to read Mistborn to get to it, but I like 100% recommend The Well of Ascension because it left me on the edge of my chair. Last book for my March wrap up is The Hero of Ages, so book 3 in the Mistborn trilogy. We shall see whether or not I finish it, so even if I don't, I definitely read 3 books, which is at least they were all about 600 pages, so I've read well over 1,800 pages in March, which I think is a pretty good feat, I'm not gonna lie. So Taming 7, not bad, not amazing, but would still recommend. And then the Mistborn trilogy, books 1 and 2, 100% recommend. Book 2, you need to read it now. I've had quite a nice fantasy month, so March has been a fantasy month for me, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I don't know, tell me what your top book of March 2025 was and what your worst book of March 2025 was. That is my March wrap up. I look forward to hearing about what you've read in March, and if you haven't already, make sure to add the Mistborn trilogy to your TBR pile because they will not disappoint any fantasy readers out there. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.